Welcome to English literature class, my dear students of class 9th. Now open page number 78 and the second paragraph should be started from here. But no one said, I will take Maggie. No one was interested to take Maggie to their homes. No one was. No one was ready to take Maggie his or her home. Pitying glances were cast on worn and wasted form, and thoughts were troubled on her account. People glances were full of pity. Pity on pale and thin form, and thoughts were troubled on her account. Pitying glances were cast on pale and thin form, and thoughts were troubled on her account. On her account, everyone was sad. Everyone's face was pale and thin. But mother brought cast off garments. Some mothers brought discarded garments, and removing her soiled and ragged clothes, dressed her in clean attire. Mothers brought discarded, you may say torn and discarded cloth, garments, and removing Maggie's soiled and ragged clothes, dressed her in clean attire, clean dress. The sad eyes and patient face of a little one touched many hearts, and even knocked at them for entrance, but none opened to take her in. All have pity on Maggie, but no one was ready to take him or her. No one was, whether any man or woman, to take Maggie home. Who wanted a bedridden child? Who wanted to take bedridden child, sick child? Take her to the poor house, said a rough man. A rough man said, take her to the poor house. Of whom the question was to be done with Maggie. When the question was asked, was to be done with Maggie, a rough man said, take her to the poor house, was the answer. Nobody is going to be bothered with her. Nobody was interested in taking pain for Maggie. The poor house is a sad place for a sick and helpless child, answered one. For your child or mine? For your child or mine, said the other, lightly speaking. For your child or mine means the poor house is a sad place for your child or mine child, but not for Maggie, not for such type of girl who is bedridden, but for if brought it will prove a blessed change. A child who behaves badly, blessed change. She will be kept clean. Someone said that she will be kept clean there. have healthy food. Healthy food will be given to her and be doctored, be nursed, be medical facilities will be given to her properly, which is more than can be said of her past condition. The past condition is as very miserable, she would be in better condition there. There was reason in that, but still it didn't satisfy. The day following the day of death was made the day of burial. The following day was the burial day. A few neighbors were at the miserable hovel, at the miserable small dirty house, which was in bad condition, but none followed dead cart, as it bore the unhonored remains to his pauper, eligible for public charity, pauper grave. Farmer Jones, after the coffin was taken out, placed John in his wagon and drove away, satisfied that he had done his part. He thought that his work is over. What happens after? He thought that his work is over. Now Alice's turn. Mrs. Alice spoke to Kate with a hurried air. Bid your sister goodbye, and drew the tearful children apart. Scarcely their lips had touched in a sobbing farewell. When she departed from her sister, when Maggie departed from her sister, she sobbed. Her lips wanted to say something, but she couldn't. Hastily others went out, some glancing at Maggie, and some resolutely, firmly refraining from a look, avoiding from a look, until all had gone. She was alone. Just beyond the threshold, Joe Thompson, the wheelwright. Wheelwright means who repairs wheels or wheelchairs. Joe Thompson, the wheelwright, paused, stopped, and said to the blacksmith's wife, who was hastening off with the rest, he said to her, "It is a cruel thing to leave her so. It is a very cruel thing to leave her so." She said, "Then take her to the poorhouse. She will have to go there," answered the blacksmith's wife, springing away, going away from there and leaving Joe behind. For a little while, the man stood with a puzzled air. He was confused. What should he do, what he should not do? Then he turned back and went into the hovel again. Went to the poor hut, dilapidated hut again. Maggie, with painful effort, had raised herself to an upright position and was sitting on the bed, spreading her eyes upon the door out which all had just departed. A vague uncertain terror had come into her thin white face. "Oh, Mr. Thompson," she cried out, catching her suspended, interrupted breath. "Don't leave me here all alone. Don't leave me here all alone." Though rough in exterior, his appearance, Mr. Joe Thompson's appearance was rough. The exterior, though rough in exterior, Joe Thompson, the wheelwright, had a heart, and it was very tender, very soft in some places. He liked children and was pleased to have them come to his shop, where sleds, means sledge, and wagons were made or mended for the village lads, village boys, without a draft on their hoarded sixpences. No, dear, he answered in a kind voice. No, I will not leave you alone, going to the bed and stooping down, bending the body towards her over the child. You shan't be left here alone. Then he wrapped her with a gentleness almost of a woman in the clean bedclothes which some neighbor had brought, and lifting her in his strong arm, bore her out into the air and across the field that lay between the hovel and his home. Now, Joe Thompson's wife, who happened to be childless, she was childless. She had no issue, was not a woman of saintly temper. She was not cool-minded lady, saintly temper, nor much given to self-denial for others' good. She was a selfish lady, and Joe had well grounded. He had a ground doubt. He was sure that well-grounded doubt touching the manner of greeting he should receive on his arrival. He knew it very well, Joe Thompson knew it very well, what will happen when he will go to the home and what the answer would be of his wife. Mrs. Thompson saw him approaching from the window, and with ruffling feathers, irritated feathers, met him a few paces from the door, and he opened the garden gate and came in. He bore a precious burden, and he felt it to be so. He bore a precious burden. Maggie was very precious for him, and he felt it to be so. As his arms held the sick child to his breast, a sphere of tenderness went out from her and entered his feelings. A bond had already tied itself around them both, and love was springing into life. What have you there? Sharply questioned Mrs. Thompson. What were you doing there? What have you there? Joe felt the child start and shrink against him. She got afraid. He did not reply except by a look that was pleading and cautionary, that said, wait a moment for explanations. Wait a moment for explanation and be gentle. And passing in, carried Maggie to the small room on the first floor, and laid her on a bed. Then stepping back, he shut the door and stood face to face with his vinegar-tempered, short-tempered wife in the passage way outside. You haven't brought home that brat. Anger and astonishment were in the tones of Mrs. Joe Thompson. Her face was in a flame. She was in great anger. She became very furious. I think women's hearts are sometimes very hard, said Joe. Usually Joe Thompson got out of his wife's way. What his wife liked and what she did not like, sometimes he didn't care it, or kept rigidly silent and non-combative, non-fighting when she fired up on any subject. He used to neglect his wife sometimes. It was with some surprise, therefore, that she now confronted a formally set countenance, formally set face, and a resolute pair of eyes, determined eyes. She said, women's hearts are not half so hard as men's. Jo saw by a quick intuition means to know something by using one's feeling rather than facts. By a quick intuition that his resolute bearing had impressed his wife. As he was resoluted that he will serve Maggie, that his resolute bearing had impressed his wife, and he answered quickly and with a real indignation. Indignation means feeling of anger and surprise. Be that it may be, every woman at the funeral turned her eyes steadily. Be that as it may, every woman at the funeral turned her eyes steadily from the sick child's face, and when the cart went off with her dead mother, hurried away and left her alone in that old hut, with the sun not an hour in the sky. Where were John and Kate? Asked Mrs. Thompson. Farmer John tossed John into his wagon and drove off. Katie went home with Mrs. Ellis, but nobody wanted the poor sick. Send her to the poorhouse was the cry everywhere. Why didn't you let her go then? What did you bring? What did you bring her here for? Why? Why have you brought her here? She can't walk to the poorhouse, said Joe. Joe said that she is unable to walk to the poorhouse. Somebody's arms must carry her, and mine are strong enough for that task, for that work. Then why didn't you keep on? Why did you stop here? Demanded the wife, asked the wife. Because I am not apt to go on fool errands. I am not going to do such type of foolish work, foolish job. The guardians must first be seen and a permit obtained. Without permission, without guardian, she cannot be entered into poor house. There was no gainsaying this. There was no refusal. There was no opposition when he said these lines to his wife. When will you see the guardians? When will you meet the guardians? Was asked with irrepressible impatience, high spirit. She asked with high spirit. He said, tomorrow. Tomorrow I will meet the guardian. Why put it off till tomorrow? Go at once for the permit and get the whole thing off of your hands tonight. And what happened next, you will see in my next video. Thank you so much, students.